Born at the cusp of a new century in England, Mary Boleyn entered a world defined by ambition, court intrigue, and dynastic dreams. As the eldest daughter of Thomas Boleyn and Elizabeth Howard, her childhood played out against the backdrop of a restless Tudor realm. This is the story of a delicate girl from Kent, who came to stand at the heart of Renaissance courts and into the shadows of one of England's greatest royal dramas. Nestled in the green landscape of Kent, Hever Castle was the Boleyn family seat, a place of ancient charm, yet also rising aspiration. As Mary's first home, it was here she learned the disciplines of nobility, including needlework, music, dance, correct speech, and religious devotion. Each morning invited reading in English and French, perhaps lessons in Latin, mathematics, and religious texts. Tutors and governesses taught reading from Psalms or the Gospels, embroidery with devotional scenes, and manners fitting a budding servant of the court. The Boleyn children, Mary, Anne, and George, trained together in some subjects, but Mary, as the eldest daughter, carried a burden of expectation to make an advantageous marriage and to reflect her family's growing renown. In the castle's halls and gardens, she witnessed her father's diplomacy, her mother's noble lineage, and the quiet pressure of ambition. It was a childhood of ritual and refinement, and yet one tinged with latent tension. The promise of nobility but the weight of strategy. Thomas Boleyn, fluent in French and Italian, stretched his political ambition across the courts of Henry VII and Henry VIII. His wife, Elizabeth Howard, was sister to the Duke of Norfolk, making their daughters cousins to the highest reaches of power. Mary, though born into a family ascending the ranks of courtly gentility, was never far from the volatile sea of Tudor politics. In her early adolescence, she would have watched discussions of marriage, patronage, and alliances around her. The Boleyn strategy was clear: to leverage their Howard blood and use Thomas's skill to place their children into positions of power. Mary's siblings would follow, but as the eldest daughter, she embodied that first step, an asset to be carefully shaped. In a Tudor household, aspirations were part of daily life. Under the gaze of tutors and parents, Mary and Anne prepared for roles defined by marriage, duty, and dignity. By her early teens, Mary's education expanded. She likely learned French conversation and etiquette, preparing her for life at court or abroad. Noble girls in such positions were trained to speak multiple tongues, pluck the lute, dance the latest steps, and present themselves with poise before kings and princes. The Boleyn household would have rehearsed courtly presentations, role-playing etiquettes, walks, curtsies, and greeting protocols. Mary was taught to read poetry, write letters, and compose verses, skills that would later aid her role in courtly intrigue, even if she would not become a renowned patron like her sister. At the age of around 14 or 15, Mary joined the household of Princess Mary Tudor, preparing for the journey to France in 1514. The princess's marriage to the French king elevated Mary to an international stage. She traveled abroad with her mistress, receiving a rare glimpse of a royal marriage and courtly ceremony beyond England. When Louis died in January 1515, Mary stayed in France, entering the service of the Queen of Francis I. The French court was famous for its art, fashion, learning, and its penchant for romance. Mary's letters, a few survive, though none from this period precisely, would have described ornate gowns, elaborate entertainments, masks, and pageants that filled the Loire Valley. This was also a vivid awakening, a young Englishwoman immersed in Renaissance, sensuality, and spectacle. Rumors swirl that Mary became involved with courtiers, and perhaps even King Francis himself. Later a Scottish diplomat, Archibald Douglas, relayed that Francis called her la jument anglaise, the English mare. Historians debate how literal the rumors were. It may have been classic court slander, or exaggerated by political gossip. Yet even whispers of intimacy would later shape her reputation in England. Despite, and perhaps because of, the scandal, Mary absorbed French sophistication. She honed her language, manners, and poise, grace under pressure, awareness of court politics, the art of charm. Meanwhile, Anne, still younger, honed similar skills and left France in 1522, returning as a brilliant courtier ready to transform England. By 1519 or 1520, Mary returned to England. She was now a worldly young woman of perhaps 20 and ready for marriage. Her parents secured her a union with William Carey, a gentleman of Henry VIII's privy chamber. Carey was handsome, energetic, well-liked, and a catalyst for Mary's rise. Their marriage brought Mary to court permanently. She entered Queen Catherine of Aragon's household as a lady-in-waiting. Her time abroad, her social polish, and Carey's courtly position made her a prominent presence. Mary began living daily within the heat of Tudor politics. Banquets, confidential greetings from ambassadors, elaborate entertainments, pilgrimages, each event a stage. Amid this glittering world, Mary reportedly met Henry VIII. Whether before or after marriage, rumors held that they shared an affair. Some accounts place it just before or immediately after the wedding. Others say it developed at court, subtle and unspoken. The liaison was discreet, overshadowed soon after by Henry's shifting gaze toward Anne. Rumors even attribute the births of Mary's children, Catherine Carey, 1524, and Henry Carey, 1526, to the king, yet Henry never recognized them formally. Still, the whisper of royal blood clung to them. Mary handled the scandal with caution. She returned to a quieter married life, living near court but withdrawn from public affairs. Yet her liaison left a permanent mark on her reputation, both scandalous and compelling. As Anne ascended, catching Henry's attention, rejecting him until she secured power, and transforming into queen, Mary watched. The sisters' childhood preparations diverged. Anne, educated abroad too, grew politically astute. Religiously reformist, self-assertive. Mary, though once royal mistress, became quieter, more withdrawn. Her childhood best suited to marriage, not ambition. The years highlight their differences. Anne's intelligence and conviction placed her center stage. Mary faded into the background, a talented but pliable figure. Had she pursued ambition more forcefully, could she have taken Anne's place? We can only speculate, but her childhood training, while refined, lacked Anne's political fire. Mary's upbringing was carefully managed. Her education, Parisian sophistication, courtly polish. She was, in many ways, the perfect Tudor noblewoman, graceful, cultured, obedient. But in a world defined by dynastic struggle and religious upheaval, such traits didn't always prevail. Mary never became queen. She lived through scandal, outlived her sister's execution in 1536, and navigated the turbulent courts under Jane Grey, Mary, and Elizabeth I. Hers was a story not of crown and calamity, but survival, adaptability, and quiet resilience. Mary Boleyn's childhood, from parchment and prayer to sophistication at the French court, reflects the ambitions of her family. Though overshadowed by her sister's ultimate fame and downfall, Mary's early years shaped her into a woman who could live close to power and still walk away. In a Tudor world where girls were assets designed for dynastic gain, Mary was one of the very few who lived to tell the tale. Her childhood remains less documented than her sister's, but even the traces we possess outline the story of a girl who, for a time, had the education, the elegance, and the opportunity to become England's queen. Instead, she became something rarer, a witness to Tudor power and a survivor.